met yesterday by a couple of the members of parliament from both sides, majority and minority, are going to be considered at this committee stage. They'll come back and report, upon which they'll go into the third reading. And by the way, there are no timelines that are given to this particular bills. So committee stage and third reading might actually happen before the end of this week. The promise for Kimani Ichung'wah, who is the leader of majority in the House, is that they have to get done and dusted with it, so that when your February deductions are going to be made, that housing levy deduction would essentially be affected. And you do know that the court stopped the extension of that period that was granted to the government to continue collecting the housing levy as they go back to the National House and make it legal. We talk about that this morning. My name is Elijah Charles. Can I get, once we come back, your newspapers? Let's talk about that this morning then. The Daily Nation is talking about how State House extra budget has been blocked. The Controller Budget, Margaret Nyakango, rejected a request by the national government to spend 47 billion shillings and an emergency provision that allows withdrawals without parliamentary approval. Under this was 1 billion by State House for the purchase of vehicles and building of a modern presidential dais. And by the way, if you read the details of this particular story, you're going to realize that that dais was 700 million shillings worth. Yeah. And purchase of new vehicles as well. To realize that the president has completely new vehicles. There's Mercedes-Benz, the limousine. For those who know, around the 2022 model. Just an upgrade from the 2022 model. It's the 550 S-Class. It's completely new. So Nyakango has looked at it and said, nah. Guys bought new vehicles when you came into the house. Why do you need more? You can read that story on page 7. Also covered on our website on www.lookuptv.co.ke. 700 million shillings for presidential dais. 700 million shillings. For those who know, just 300 million shillings, shy of 1 billion shillings. For those who don't know as well, how do you get to 1 billion shillings? How many millions make 1 billion? All right, on page 12, you're going to read about how fuel might not be cheaper anyway, as the government has essentially gone in and reviewed a couple of taxes and levies on it, and that essentially will mean more pain at the pump, again, for majority of Kenyans, which translates also to the high cost of living in the country as well, because we do know exactly how fuel affects prices in the country. You're going to read on this. The government has tripled the tax payable to the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority for every litre of commodity purchased. That story covered on page 12. Government is now insisting that counties must get 450 billion. A meeting with governors at the ongoing National Executive Retreat in Naivasha failed to unlock the deadlock over the devolved unit share of national revenue, even as President RUTO pledged his administration is committed to strengthening devolution. Treasury has offered 391 billion, but the chiefs want more. That story covered on page 5. Tragedy, a student dies on arrival in Dublin. A family in Baringo wants an investigation into the cause of death of their 23-year-old daughter 3 days after returning to Dublin, Ireland, where she had been studying for 8 months. Story covered on page 3. On the back page, you're going to see how DCI is seeking officers to fill its ranks in recruitment drive. Officers with degree or diploma in IT-related fields and driver's license will be given preference. And you must be below 40 years of age. Why Union opts for TNC rather than Treasury to handle tutors' pensions. You're going to read that story on the back page as well. That's it Let's cross over to the Standard this morning. Now, dead teachers paid millions is the bigger headline here. Now, members of parliament demand an in-depth audit of the Teacher Service Commission payroll following revelations that dead tutors were in the list that saw the state agency overpay salaries by, now wait for it, 446 million for the financial year 2021-2022. 353 million is the amount of money in shillings that TAC overpaid teachers' salaries in the 2020-2021 financial year. Question is, who's this receiving these monies? Yeah. Yes, scars of city gas explosion almost a month later. Heaps of burnt out wreckage still lies bare at Muradi Estate, the scene of tragic gas explosion scene. Victims still scarred, a testimony to the devastating impact of the night fireball. For them, life was never the same again. You're going to read that story on pages 2 and 3. RUTO, Tinubu, the flying president. All right, page 6. The comparison of the president and the Nigerian president as well. On page 6 right here on the Standard, there is a story here on pages 5 on a strange kidnap, shock murder of businessman. All these events happened on Valentine's Day. You're going to read that story on page 5. And there's also a story here which is essentially also what we're going to talk about this morning. President meets with cabinet and county chiefs at the Naivasha retreat. We talk about that this morning as well. Now, there's a story here, interesting to all Arsenal fans. Maybe we can audit this headline here today. Tough test as Arsenal face Porto. Story we're going to read on page 32 of the Standard. I'm going to read it. Group B winners. In fact, let me just read the pointers here. The Gunners will be full of confidence as they face Portuguese side after thrashing Burnley on Saturday, but not just Burnley. We've been flying, not just Burnley. Just say after thrashing all teams they faced this year. That would be more accurate. They're saying that Porto will fancy their chances after finishing level with Barca in the group stage. But then Arsenal and Barca, you can't put them on the same level right now. Yeah. So we're waiting for that. It's going to happen from 11 p.m. Tonight. And indeed, it's going to be Porto versus Arsenal. Now remember, Arsenal have been struggling for 7 years to go past the group 16 stage. And so far, things are not so bad, by the way, from this particular end when it comes to Arsenal, if you go by how they've performed this year. Still unbeaten in 2024, and when I say unbeaten, they've won all their respective matches. As an Arsenal fan, I wish Declan Rice, Partey, Martinelli, and the rest of the squad tonight success. That's it. All right. That's where we are. Take a tiny breather. Once we come back, we jump straight into our newsroom this morning. Welcome back. The Affordable Housing Bill has been passed by the National Assembly, awaiting its third reading. 141 legislators voted in support of the bill after a heated debate in Parliament, with members allied to the Azimio coalition opposing the bill with 58 votes. As Ian Ketani opens this morning, the bill will be read for the third time today.
In what is a big win for President William Ruto, legislators today afternoon passed the Affordable Housing Bill, with 141 MPs voting in support against 58 who voted against the bill.
The results are as follows. The ayes 141, the noes 58, total vote 199.
The bill was in its second reading today and is expected to be tabled in Parliament for the third reading tomorrow, a couple of days after Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah in Naivasha during the government retreat assured the head of state that the bill will see the light of day. However, the bill was not passed without drama, with opposition allied legislators led by Rorieda lawmaker Otiende Amolo and his nominated counterpart John Mbadi aired their dissatisfaction with the bill.
No matter how well-intentioned the government may be, housing still remains a county function, function. And the only thing given to national government is the policy. This bill is not prescribing policy, it's prescribing the way of doing it.
This is punitive, and this is one of the worst legislations that can ever be passed in a house like this. Mr. Speaker, unless there is going to be an amendment to remove this or to make it implementable, Mr. Speaker, this particular provision should not be allowed to stand.
Molo MP Kimani Kuria highlighted that the key issues raised by the opposition will be addressed to ensure they conform with the law.
The issue about penalties in terms of the times when these levies are levied to the relevant authority. We will also be promoting an amendment so that they align with the Tax Procedures Act, so that the fines and the penalties that shall accrue as a result of late disbursement of these funds will follow the rest of the taxes as proposed by the as enshrined in the Tax Procedures Act.
Several amendments are expected to be made tomorrow during the third reading, with MPs given until midday tomorrow to file amendments with the House Clerk.
Honorable Andai and your majority colleague, you both sit in the House Business Committee. You know what we passed. However, in accordance with our standing orders, I'll direct that any member who has any amendments to file, your deadline is noon tomorrow.
Ian Keitani, Lookuptv.
Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka has hit out at the Kenya Kwanza administration, accusing it of failing Kenyans on its economic policies. Speaking during a rally in Naivasha, Kalonzo highlighted corruption in county governments, saying that 80% of employees are only from 12 tribes, leaving out 31 tribes. Rugaival with that story.
Report 1,280 of the 53,000. And now I've run out of the 53,599 instances that were referred to the Kenya National Examinations Council had their certificates confirmed to be fake.
Analyzing the Kenya Kwanza government governorship, Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka has expressed concerns against RUTO's ignorance towards issues affecting Kenyans, saying that they are the same issues that led to DRC into a blaze.
If you mess up with the composition of a country's national defense forces, you have created a problem that will be impossible to cure, particularly in our region. US truly has been involved in trying to help our countries in the neighborhood to get life back on course. As we speak, there's a huge conflict in the DRC, itself a recent member of the East African Community. I'm told that the city of Goma may fall, it may not fall.
Additionally, Kalonzo Musyoka has criticized RUTO's directive that legislators early to the government should toe the line, irrational of what Kenyans are going through. Kalonzo continued to say that these are characteristics of a dictator.
That you want your child to become a member of the KDF, you have to part with 700,000 Kenyan shillings. That is how bad things are. Bad governance.
Nevertheless, he didn't hesitate to attack the high rise of corruption cases in the country, attributing them to poor leadership. Kalonzo, speaking in Lake Naivasha Resort during the ICS forum, he said that recent studies indicated that 10 tribes in the country had taken over 80% job opportunities in the county's employment equality, dropping from 21% to 13% in a span of 17 months. The Kenya Kwanza government has been in power.
CIC 2023 audit report, which reviews concerning patterns in employment diversity among Kenya's 47 counties. Only 10 tribes account for nearly 80% of county employment, while 29 other tribes, call them communities, account for just 1% of county work prospects.
Kalonzo incessantly tabled security concerns after the president declared Kenya a visa-free country, alleging that this is putting the country at risk.
William RUTO has even declared this country visa-free, so watch out for others who may come from very difficult destinations to come to our country. But Kenyans themselves must of necessity do what you're doing.
Ruga Ival, Lookuptv.
The Council of Governors has demanded that the national government respects devolution and stops interfering with the running of the devolved units. In a statement read by COG Chair Anne Waiguru, governors now say the country is on the brink of suffering a setback on the gains of devolution if the national government continues to hold on to functions that are devolved while delaying disbursement of equitable revenues to counties. Our reporter Henry Tendanyula with more.
On the second day of the cabinet retreat in Naivasha, the Council of Governors, through its chair Anne Waiguru, got a glorious chance to reflect on the working relationship between the national government and the devolved units in just 1.5 years of President William Ruto's regime. And on this particular day, the council raised its dissatisfaction with the way the government has treated the second tier of governance, complaining of a major interference in their functions.
The message from the governors is this: they support your government, they are supporting the development agenda, the plan of the Kenya Kwanza, but they are urging that they be given their due space to be governors and to deliver on devolution.
Key among issues the governors feel should be addressed is the tendency of the national government to hold on functions that the devolution has handed to devolved units and the persistent delay in disbursement of county resources.
Resist the temptation to claw back. It can never augur positively on this government. Let it not be that this government is the one that clawed back. And we have worked very hard to restrain from having fights publicly. But if we are going to hire officers that can be done to do work that is done by county officials, there will be a clash. If you're going to hire agricultural officers to supervise farmers, and we have extension officers supervising farmers, we will have a clash. Why can't we just synergize and work together?
While acknowledging the existence of the problem, President Ruto has promised to work hand in hand with governors to find a lasting solution.
This country had reached a place where it was almost breaking because of centralization of power. And if we claw back everything, it may not happen now. It may not happen in 5 years. It may not happen in 10 years, but there will be a revolt by the people because we will go back to the problems that we had before devolution.
County governments are not our competitors, they are our partners. They are another level of government that we must work with because the Constitution contemplates us working together.
He has also reiterated that his government will remain steadfast in protecting and furthering devolution for the benefit of Kenyans.
Synergy is important, and we must hem in and converge our thoughts, our plans, so that we can together change our country.
On the strengthening shilling versus the dollar, the head of state has assured the nation the country is on the right track to economic recovery and is out of the woods as far as debt repayment is concerned.
We must never be in the kind of situation that we have been in the last 2 years, where everybody in the world is waiting for us to go down. We must never find ourselves there.
We are now in a more certain world. Secondly, we're now flexible to use all the other instruments that we wanted to use. Third, the market has understood the strategy. They are quiet now. Actually, we have no noise. And the noise in the exchange rate is actually the positive noise. That is, it is appreciating.
Henry Tendanyula, Lookuptv.
Henry Tendanyula. The Kenya National Union of Teachers, KNUT, Secretary General Collins Oyu has emphasized on the need for collaboration between the union and the Teacher Service Commission for the country to evolve the education system. Speaking before the National Assembly Education Committee, Oyu further noted that TSC should address issues on pension, employment and promotion of teachers.
The TSC is using the ignorance of these teachers to place the teacher somewhere. And we have found out that.
As the debate on education reforms rages, the Kenya National Union of Teachers Secretary General Collins Oyu, while appearing before the National Assembly Education Committee on Tuesday, noted with concern about the tussle between NAT and TSC and underscored the importance of an alliance between the Teachers Union and the Teacher Service Commission, claiming the union's input in the pension amendment draft had been ignored.
We wanted Teacher Service Commission to involve us as true representatives of these teachers, and we told them in black and white that we are not stakeholders, but we are.
It is at that committee that Oyu comprehensively addressed the need to have some changes made in the TSC Act. Oyu noted that there is rising conflict and rival interests between the Commission and the Union, where he addressed issues on the Commission asking teachers to exit the Union so as to get promotions.
But those principles don't even work alone. They work hand in hand with some Teacher Service Commission directors who don't want specific teachers and matters discipline. We could not accept that. So I want to agree with Mheshimiwa that Teacher Service Commission can mishandle teachers in a manner they would wish to have or to do, using the Code of Regulations and even using the TSC Act.
The committee, however, has questioned the role and effectiveness of the union, saying that the union has miserably failed to protect the teachers' interests, saying it is the mandate of the union to make sure teachers' grievances are addressed.
You are representing teachers. You will be able to come up with a list and say these are the teachers whose benefits are being held by Teacher Service Commission or by the government against the law. If that question is posed to you, SG, do you have the list? Do you have the number of teachers whose pensions are being held illegally?
Mevin Getembe, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
Let's continue then. Now, Teacher Service Commission CEO Nancy Macharia was on the hot seat as she responded to audit questions of the financial year 2021 and 2022, which the Auditor General had poked holes into, highlighting inconsistencies in the expenditure. Stanley Lugaria attended the session and now files the following report.
With the TSC financial year 2021-2022 in question, over suspicious expenditures raised by Auditor General, TSC CEO Nancy Macharia appeared before the Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee to shed light on the discrepancies.
If you don't have those facts, please admit and then we see how to proceed, because we don't want to spend too much time.
Management later on provided the workings showing that actually what was left after all the allowed reductions was below taxable amount.
So we budgeted for 20 billion, just 20 million just to cater for the drift, but then the insurance said that our claims were more than that, and therefore
on over expenditure of budget, committee members sought to understand whether TSC had an exact figure of budget on the financial year, and if yes, what exact figures did the Commission receive and why they overspent?
Give us details that have asked for. Again, that's a week you can do that.
Chair, you know you are the ones who appropriate us this money. So we had to wait for you to appropriate. The money you give, whether we take it to the teachers or to the secretariat staff, comes from Parliament.
Auditor General Nancy Gadungo had poked holes in the process of remitting and deduction of pay on teachers based on scientific data analytic tool, which reflected on doubles and overpayment of teachers, an issue that has raised eyebrows, pushing the lawmakers to order for a forensic audit to be conducted on the TSC payroll system. On the issue of teachers' group life cover in the financial year 2021-2022, MPs inquired to understand the tendering process, why TSC underquoted figures by spending 20 million shillings, which saw an increase in claims resulting to a further 57 million shillings, meant for the commission staff, seeking to understand the tendering process for a medical cover institution and whether due diligence was observed.
Chair, we brought supporting evidence on this one about the tender and everything. We floated even before it expired because already we had the budget of 20 million. But then we couldn't get, it was unresponsive because as we got to know the claims experience from the insurers. And you see, it's about the market trends. We are not in insurance ourselves.
Teachers Service Commission CEO Nancy Macharia, while appearing before the Public Accounts Committee, has had it a rough time to explain on how he spent on the budget of the financial year 2021-2022. These, among other submissions, the CEO is required to come before the budget again in a week's time. Stanley Lugaria, Lookuptv, at the Parliament Building, Nairobi.
So the thing is, I'm going to read again so that we are together on this particular issue for making law in the country. I'll be clear. There's no timeline that is given for passing a bill, as long as it goes through the entire process. Now, that story that has been filed by Ian Ketani on the housing bill is what has gotten us talking this morning. And I'll tell you, I'll listen again. What we do know is that that particular bill, yes, did go through the first reading mid last week. Well, members of parliament went to the weekend, came back, spoke about it, and then yesterday it went through the second reading. At this particular stage, they voted on it. Good, done and dusted. Today, there is a particular area then that has to happen in between the second reading and the third reading. It has to go to the committee stage. Now, this is where all the deliberations on that particular bill, in terms of change of text and any other thing that was spoken yesterday by both sides of the House, as minority and majority, essentially will sit down and talk about it and then come back for the third reading. From there, then you do expect that it's indeed going to be signed into law. But the third reading is happening today. So we're praying that the committees then that were involved in this particular bill, that's the Finance Committee, have looked at the bill and deliberated on it. But according to Kimani Ichung'wah, has to happen before your HR sends you that message about your March salaries. Once we come back, we talk about how the voting went down yesterday, with rumors about how majority of azimio members of parliament missed that particular house because there was a sweet dunkling in their faces supporting Raila Amolo Odinga for that top AU job. Once we come back, we table that conversation. Good morning.
Once again, tuko hapa Angel Center for Abandoned Kids, all because of you.
My name is Catherine Wanjiru. I am the admin, Angel Center for Abandoned Children. Our founder is Wamaitha Mwangi. We currently have 64 children, 32 going to school, and among those 32, 2 are special children, and we are left at the home with 32. Now the toddlers and the infants. To the RUTO Foundation, thank you so much for remembering us. Guys, we lack words. We lack words. Amazing. We don't know what to say. Thank you for remembering us. You made a promise and you have delivered. And may God bless you. To my fellow Kenyans, as usual, cheza loto, sio Ndoto. Angel Center tumeshinda Lotto.
Every time you play Lotto, 25% goes to the Lotto Foundation, which supports our fellow Kenyans through various causes. Thank you for your help. Together, we are changing lives.
Mambo ni mawili, kufikisha, kumwaga na kurudi. Kulala ni mwaka mpya.
Muka we mse. Nini mbaya? Wewe kwani vile dereva anaendesha gari vibaya, lazima tususe. Anaendesha gari na kwa simu the whole time, hata angalia barabara. Mwaka iliyopita peke yake watu zaidi ya 3,000 walipoteza maisha yao barabarani kwa sababu ya tabia kama hizo. Hautatuangamiza tukiona. Naomba msamaha, nitamtaka vizuri. Si wameomba msamaha. Sasa twende tusafiri kwa mwendo wa aste.
Dere Smart hufikisha abiria salama. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na NTSA kwa ushirikiano na European Union.
Save a Life is a non-profit organization that has taken the front line in transforming lives in the entire country. So far, we have transformed the life of over 100,000 people through our programs, which include medical support, youth empowerment, street family program, feeding program, and climate change. Join us today as we transform lives. As we always say, service to humanity is service to God. Save a life, transforming lives.
Are you a junior secondary school, a college, a TVET institution, or a university, and you want to advertise your intake? Book now and advertise with us today on both Lookuptv and all our digital platforms. Call us today or email us on sales@lookuptv.co.ke.
At Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. I am at Kiage Simba. There's just a lot that we have to talk about this morning. It's a good thing that I do see Sankara and Oduenyo with us right here, because indeed there's a lot that we have to figure from what happened yesterday. Well, one, we're going to make reference to that particular retreat in Naivasha, where the president was essentially telling down members of parliament for not supporting him like they should. Well, looks as if they listened, because now the housing bill, if that promise that Kimani Ichung'wah made is going to be true, we're just about to see it get tabled again today for the third and final reading. Yesterday, we did that voting. We're going to talk about those voting patterns. Let's take a look at this particular story. Once we come back, I'll be introducing the gentleman who are joining us this morning so we can table that particular conversation. Good morning.
In what is a big win for President William Ruto, legislators today afternoon passed the Affordable Housing Bill, with 141 MPs voting in support against 58 who voted against the bill.
The results are as follows. The ayes 141, the noes 58, total vote 199.
The bill was in its second reading today and is expected to be tabled in Parliament for the third reading tomorrow, a couple of days after Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah in Naivasha during the government retreat assured the head of state that the bill will see the light of day. However, the bill was not passed without drama, with opposition allied legislators led by Rorieda Lomeka Otiende Amolo and his nominated counterpart John Mbadi had the dissatisfaction with the bill.
No matter how well intentioned the government may be, housing still remains a county function, function. And the only thing given to national government is the policy. This bill is not prescribing policy, it's prescribing the way of doing it.
This is punitive, and this is one of the worst legislations that can ever be passed in a house like this. Mr. Speaker, unless there is going to be an amendment to remove this or to make it implementable, Mr. Speaker, this particular provision should not be allowed to stand.
Molo MP Kimani Kuria highlighted that the key issues raised by the opposition will be addressed to ensure they conform with the law.
The issue about penalties in terms of the times when these levies are levied to the relevant authority, we will also be promoting an amendment so that they are in line with the Tax Procedures Act, so that the fines and the penalties that shall accrue as a result of late disbursement of these funds will follow the rest of the taxes as proposed by the as enshrined in the Tax Procedures Act.
Several amendments are expected to be made tomorrow during the third reading, with MPs given until midday tomorrow to file amendments with the House Clerk.
Honorable Andai and your majority colleague, you both sit in the House Business Committee. You know what we passed. However, in accordance with our standing orders, I'll direct that any member who has any amendments to file, your deadline is noon tomorrow.
Ian Keitani, Lookuptv.
That's it. It is noon tomorrow. That's when the deadline is. And if you have any amendments in this particular bill, before then the committee would consider your amendments before the final reading. Well, Odenyo, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine.
Sankara, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well.
Good.
I can't complain much. I wasn't well, but I'm happy I'm stable.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Happy to have you around. Odenyo, let me start with you. Let's talk about the numbers. I mean, it is 141 vis-a-vis 58 who opposed that particular bill. But when we look at the numbers of the minority in Parliament, we do know very well that they're not 58. Heavy absenteeism from that particular house. Let's first talk about those numbers before we get into what the bill essentially, how the bill was discussed in the National House yesterday.
Good morning to our viewers. It's another warm morning, and we thank God, despite all the other challenges that we face. It's always good to appreciate. I believe in being appreciative of what I have, even as I aspire for the heavens. On the issue of the numbers, I'm a very disappointed man with our legislature as a whole. And I think for me, it does not matter whether you support the government or you support the minority or what people call the opposition.
Yes.
For me, I loathe people who intentionally choose to abscond their responsibilities and still get paid for it. That's why I've mentioned many times in many spaces, and sometimes I'm abused for saying this. We have ghost workers in the name of legislators.
Yes.
And I'm speaking as a Kenyan who has aspirations of leadership. I'm speaking as a Kenyan who is speaking to young children at home. I am telling the children of the Republic of Kenya that do not take after some of the leaders we have, especially in the National Assembly. If you do a spot check online, you will find that the Kenya Kwanza has 179 members of parliament.
That's it.
Azimio has 158. We are including the minority, the nominated. The question I ask myself is, these people will talk about how parliament is captured. The opposition members will talk about how parliament is captured. But I always ask myself, are you telling me that 158 people cannot make enough noise to have an impact in parliament? Are you telling me that? So for us to realize that there were only 58, the rest were absentees, it's a real disappointment. And at the end of the day, it speaks to our manners as a people.
Yes.
Because today, I'm very sure if you watch around some of the TV stations and on social media, you'll realize some of the absentees are the most vocal out there. So these are people who have a responsibility. I believe in showing up. Simba, I believe in showing up. Show up. Express your desire. Express your purpose for being. You are elected to do representation, legislation, and oversight in parliament and within the organized structures of governance. When there is when there's a bill in parliament, you have to forego everything else unless it's a matter of health, or maybe we talk of issues of, we may have some unavoidables. Those are the circumstances. But for you to intentionally abscond your responsibility under the guise of the legislature is captured, the majority will have their way, I think it's a disappointment that we should not encourage as a country. Because I believe, the other time I told you, democracy is about mobilization of ideas. I believe in having my voice as part of the solution. A bill, whichever bill, however bad it appears, is supposed to solve problems of Kenyans. And when that bill is presented in parliament or in whatever space during public participation or in a committee, you have a responsibility as a legislator to lend a voice of your people. Remember, it's not you. When you go to parliament, it's not you speaking. It's your people speaking. So when you fail to participate in the enactment of a bill, it simply means you've excluded the voice of your people from that bill. Which means that bill is being made without the input of your people. I believe present your idea such that, like I told you the other time, if it's not picked up in the bill, there is some sober and sane person somewhere who might use that idea somewhere else. Because leadership is about presenting the ideas you have so that you add value and cause to the discourse that we are having.
Odenya, what is the point of going to vote on a bill that you know very well that when it comes to the numbers, people numbers, if all of them were supposed to turn up, that you essentially again would lose?
Personally, I believe in something called the power of one. There is no single idea, there is no single revolution that was started by two people. There's no idea in this world that is generated by two people at the same time. The power of one dictates that even if you are alone, there's someone who once said there might be 100 people there. Out of 100, 99 might be wrong. It might be only be that one that might be right. When that one chooses to keep quiet, that one denies the people an opportunity to have an alternative, such that even when the 99 have their way, the people should be alive to the idea of the minority. Because you see, laws are fluid. We are changing laws every day. Today, you may refuse to incorporate my idea, but then after you've now started implementing your idea, you get to a point you realize, probably I should have considered, and that's why laws are amended more often. Laws are not amended because the other ones were bad. Laws are amended because as we move forward, there are ideas that come up. And sometimes at every stage, those ideas we build, there's nothing new we are creating, we build on what is existing. So for me, I believe it does not matter whether I will be heard or not. Especially if I have a constitutional responsibility for which I am paid. I have an obligation as someone who is earning a salary to lend my voice, make the voice of my people known, so that when I go to my constituents, I tell them, this is what you wanted me to say, I said it, but it was not heard. But another challenge we have is that even those who are complaining that their voice will not matter, those ideas don't come from the people. I believe as a legislator, though we have the affordable housing bill, tell me how many MPs went to their constituents to hold independent public participation so that the people of Butula constituency sat down with their MP and they said, in this bill, this is what we want. So that the MP for Butula is going to parliament to say, this is what my people. Unfortunately, even those purporting to oppose sit in a caucus and they decide. I don't know if that caucus includes their constituents.
I'll be coming to you on that. There's the entire conversation about how, if you look at these voting patterns, it's a sieve. Majority of the opposition members of parliament were swayed then to support this bill by essentially being absent from the House. Sankara, good morning, sir. Again, could you talk to me about this telling pattern? It is now 141 versus 58. What does it speak to you?
I think, in my own opinion, and that has been the reality,
yes,
that most of our constitutional undertakings has been premised on political affiliations and vested interest.
Yes.
We know very well that currently President William Ruto is so much afraid and intimidated, of Raila's presence in Kenya's politics beyond 2027.
Mm-hmm.
He is therefore mobilizing and lobbying for Raila to become the AU chair. In so doing, the opposition MPs have all of a sudden made a U-turn to join the choir brigade team of President William Ruto. So, absconding that particular important day in Parliament is equivalent to supporting the bill indirectly. Yes. In other words, they were summoned and told,
yes,
I assume, that do not show up, because supposedly you show up and your opposition MPs, you must be against the bill.
Yes. So
to give a good picture, you know, currently we have a lot of international delegates in the country attending the Youth Global Summit, Environment Summit at the UNEP headquarters in Gigiri.
Mm-hmm.
So these people, they always want to please the foreigners. They want to tell them how civilized we are as a parliament. But I think it is very wrong. It is unethical and immoral for a paid-up legislator to abscond his constitutional responsibilities in the name of not being heard. You know, when I speak, it is not my interest whether you are going to listen to me or not. That should be your personal affairs. As long as I speak, I did something within my powers as an individual. Yes. I voiced my concerns out. In most instances, it is never guaranteed that when you speak, you must be heard. The choice of being heard lies with the audience. But the choice of speaking lies with the speaker. So it is very wrong for the opposition MPs to abscond parliamentary sessions in the name of protesting. You can't protest in absence. You sit there, the 158 of them, say no to that bill. I believe we are going to move forward as a country.
Yes.
I really would wish to have a parliament like the one we had. We called it the 10th parliament.
The 10th parliament,
It
yes.
was the best.
Yeah.
A legislature would not work. I was a primary school kid by then, but I would sit and take my time to watch televisions when Marende was moving motions in parliament. MPs used to behave like MPs. Today we have pigs in the name of MPs. Whoever is feeling offended can sue me, because they don't behave like legislators. These are people who can be summoned by a president and lectured like kids. You know, if I'm elected by the people and the president believes that he was elected by the people, I'm not subordinate to the president. He must respect me as an elected leader. So, by virtue of MPs converging before the president in the name of party loyalty and being lectured left, right, and center, they already gave up the power to oversee the executive. Remember, we have 3 arms of government that are operating constitutionally on delegated power, donated power from the people. Because from our constitution, I would say this over and over, it is not indicated under Article 1.1 of the Constitution that President William Ruto and his executive are sovereign. The sovereign power belongs to the people. That article there refers to us, not these people. And the MPs are there to represent us. So when an MP speaks, he speaks on behalf of the people. So the moment you fail to use the powers given to you directly by the people, and you aid the executive usurpation of power attempts, then you, in other words, they are collaborating with the executive to kill judiciary. not judiciary, but the legislature. That is what our parliamentarians are doing. And then most of our parliamentarians are just, some of them behave like village salads who do not understand what it takes to be a legislator. You have to stand with your voice. You say no to mean no, and you say yes to mean yes.
Yes.
Some of them, I don't know, but Kinuti warned us that you elected Wash Gang and cartels. These are people with tainted criminal background. So for them to survive, they have to say yes, sir, to the president. Otherwise, DCI and Subaru Outback will be chasing them like...
That's them.
Yes.
That's that. Sankara, but same question I'm going to put to you. Because then, you see, when you say that somebody absconded their duty, in their defense, they will say there's no better way to protest whatever is going on in the National House than completely missing it. We don't like it, so we're not going to be there. It's not the very first time they've done it. The other time as well, when the voting process was happening on this finance bill, which was essentially at these areas for the housing levy and then the affordable housing agenda, they also walked out just to show their dissatisfaction on this particular bill. Would it be bad to accuse them of supporting this bill when they're clearly telling you we were not going to be in the house when they're going to vote, and that's why we're walking out?
Simba, I'm fairly informed and intelligent, I believe so. When I say that the opposition MPs may have supported this bill indirectly, you know, it's scratch my back, I scratch your back. In politics. It's interest first. And I'm talking about politicians, not leaders. Most of them are politicians. There's a big difference between being a leader and a politician.
Yes.
We have a lot of politicians occupying leadership positions but practicing politics actively. You know, walking out is quite different from absconding. The intention is very clear. You're dissatisfied, but it's an action in progress. But you absconding, then coming to tell us that you absconded because you would not support it. I mean,
or you protested.
It doesn't make sense.
Or you protested.
Protest in the House. An MP's work oscillates or revolves within the parliamentary precincts.
Why fight, Sankara? Why fight when you know you're not going to?
It is always right as a soldier. You fight even if you know very well you are losing. You see, a soldier even after being shot, even 3 times, he will still run for his gun and grab. So I'm just saying, as an MP, you don't give up. If you give up, go back to the people and tell them, I'm tired.
There's something that Raila Amolo Odinga did say, essentially after he realized that he can't take the fight to Parliament. And if you do remember that particular presser, they said that they're going to look for different ways to fight the government. And they said the courts now do offer the right place for them to go to. I mean, when your party leader is already saying, well, we can't win here, we have to look for alternative ways then to fight the government. Is that okay for you to say, well, do not go? Let's go file again petitions at the courts to fight this particular bill?
Simba, we never elected Raila Amolo Odinga, the Honorable, in Parliament. We elected parliamentarians. In as much as Raila is the captain of the ship, there comes a time that independent decisions must be respected. As a leader, you must learn to stand by your people. In as much as Raila may be giving the guidelines on how to operate, a leader must always be innovative and creative enough to identify the times and adjust appropriately. I'm not saying it is entirely bad to abscond. What if some absconded and they were in clubs drinking? Do you want to persuade me to believe that they did so in the interest of the people? No. What I'm saying, and I will repeat, it is very wrong, it is immoral and unethical for a parliamentarian to abscond parliamentary sittings in the name of protest. As an elected MP or senator, their work is very clear. Whatever MPs does in Kenya, actually, our legislators do everything except for what they're supposed to be doing. They are elected to oversee, to legislate, and to represent. The moment Shakil Shabir of Kisumu East protests to appear in that particular debate, he does not represent me. My voice as an electorate is now, the powers are already usurped, you see? If Shakil fails to appear in that house, in the name he is protesting, he is not legislating. He is not overseeing. In fact, that is what we call oversight. The executive brought it. As the MPs or the legislator, what are we going to supposed to do? We are going to oversee to ensure that this particular bill is conforming with the law, and that's why the bill law making process is very elaborate. We have the first reading introduction, the first reading, the second reading,
the committee stage, and then the third reading,
the report stage,
and then the third reading,
the third reading, or the presidential assent. All these processes are constitutionally enshrined to ensure that the people's voice comes first. When a bill is introduced in the parliament, it is published. By publication and the first reading, there is no debate. That is when it is directed to the relevant departmental committees to pave way for public participation, stakeholder engagement, and etc., etc.
Yes.
So all this is the work of an MP to ensure, like what the Honorable Otiende Amolo was saying.
Yes.
It was very clear that this bill, in fact, if you read our constitution clearly, under the presidential assent, it says as long as the bill does not have anything to do with the counties, the president will assent within 7 to 14 days. Now he's saying this bill, housing is primarily a county or devolved function.
Yes.
This law errors by nature is trying to oversee and to ensure that the executive is put on checks and balances.
Pretty much.
So supposedly, a village salad MP decides to abscond the sitting. What explanation will he or she table to me to support his absence? You must be clear on why are you protesting. He is protesting with the logic, but I've told you and I will still repeat. Some of these people do not know what they're doing in parliament. They just saw people parading their posters. They expressed interest out of euphoria. They were elected. They've been given vehicles, and they sit in parliament. They just ask, what time are we leaving? Has the vehicle been fueled? Let's go and party. That's the only thing they can do. There are some MPs who've never spoken in parliament, leave alone speaking, even coughing. I've never heard some of them coughing just to show that they are present.
Pretty much. I'll be coming to you on that as well, because you raise a very important point there, Sankara, on just the stage of going through this bill. And Kennedy, just before we get there, and Sheila, if you can, by the way, if you can, play as the clip of one Kimani Ichung'wah telling the president that they're going to do everything possible. That Naivasha retreat, we played it yesterday. If you can bring up that file for this gentleman also to listen in, so we can have talking points on it. My question then becomes this: that it is possible that indeed majority of members of parliament from the opposition side or the minority side in parliament have been swayed to support this particular bill, and the only way they can support it, miss, and will scratch your back in ways that come in the document of the NATCO report. That indeed, we do know very well that your side needs leadership positions in this particular government. Case in point, the opposition government. Case in point, the entrenchment of the CDF kitty into your accounts as well, that we need you to support us, because if you do not, then we will not scratch your back when it comes to that particular point. Do you see this power play here? And I'm talking about that because is it ever okay for a member of parliament to tell the president that we are going to make sure that that particular bill passes before the end of this month?
There's something I once told Kenyans, and I wrote an article about it, where I said, constitutionalism without common sense is useless. Because the constitution and the law is supposed to be a subject of common sense. That's one. When we look at this, the whole setup, I also mentioned that democracy is supposed to be the mobilization and organization of ideas, so that those with the superior ideas carry the day. Unfortunately, what we have is the mobilization and organization of numbers. And the organization and mobilization numbers comes with stomachs to feed.
Yes.
That's how we ended up with the scratch my back, I scratch yours. a lot of horse trading. The majority leader has a responsibility to the party.
And to please the president.
The majority leader was reporting to his party leader.
Yes.
That we will do everything.
Yes.
To ensure that we deliver. That's the job he was given by the party.
That's it, but it's also a member of parliament, an elected member of parliament. Kennedy.
That's why I'm telling you.
Yes.
By that voice,
yes,
he was speaking as the leader of majority and reporting to the party and the party leader.
That's it. But also speaking, well, okay, hold on. What precedes the other? What precedes the other? Is it not a member of parliament first?
Let me explain to you.
Yes, Sankara. Yes, Sankara.
As much as the majority leader is an elected member of parliament.
But what precedes the other?
He was reporting to William Ruto, the president, in a political perspective.
That's fine.
Now, let me explain to you.
Yes, Kennedy.
We've heard of, I always talk about MPs being ghost workers. Do you know why? Chasing the dreams of, they call it the president or other people. This is what I believe. As a leader, you can be loyal to your party, very loyal, and still deliver on your mandate. That's one. It's possible to govern within the law and deliver on your mandate.
Yes.
The reason why most of these MPs are clueless and they are ghost workers is because, one, the ideas of their constituents is not in the idea of the party or the party leader. Personally, I believe if I was an MP today, the first thing I will do is to ensure that the idea of my constituents, of Butula constituency, are in the big agenda of Kenya Kwanza. So that as I am voting for a bill proposed by the ruling party, I know the share of my people. That's why I'm saying, if you know your job as a legislator, then what you do, you sit down with your people, identify their needs. After you've identified their needs, squeeze them into the big party agenda, so that as we are talking about affordable housing, you already know the share of your people. Now, what I'm saying is, when Kimani Chungwa, Mheshimiwa, the majority leader, is communicating what he was saying, that is his responsibility as the majority leader. And then two,
I don't want to cut you short, and that he's going to make sure that the Kenya Kwanza members of parliament vote in favor of this bill. But that's not their responsibility, is it?
You see,
that you're not supposed to vote in favor of the bill, is to make the bill go through, debate heavily on the bill. It's the language.
Simba,
yes,
there is something that my friend here has told you. The responsibility is to speak is with the speaker. The responsibility to listen and execute is to the audience. Simba, if I come and tell you to chop off your hand, are you going to chop off your hand because I told you to chop off your hand? What I'm telling you is that democracy, by its organization and by the standing orders, there's someone called the majority leader. The person is the person who leads the agenda of the party in parliament. We have the party whip. That is the person whose responsibility is to whip members. Now, that's why I was telling you, if you know your job as a legislator, you will ensure that as you are being whipped, you have already organized your idea in that what you are being whipped along.
Does it look that within the Kenya Kwanza party lines that you'll be allowed to do that?
I am saying it's not Kenya Kwanza that elected you. It's your people that elected you. It's your job. No, you see.
And the people get that sense.
Simba, I want us to diffuse.
Yes, and the people get that sense. Because right here, and the next question that I'm going to ask you is just about how now there's a conversation of Raila Amolo Odinga getting supported by the government, and there are other things that essentially we have to support you in the NATCO report. Is it essential that if you don't do this, if you don't do this, we have a way that we're going to stop you as well. So you have to let it go.
Simba, let me first of all make comment on the issue of Raila.
Yes.
You know, for the longest time, Kenyans have used Raila in a very wrong way. Sometimes I didn't pity Baba. You see, we have a constitution that talks of the majority and the minority. Yeah. In fact, the responsibility of oversighting the executive is not even with the minority, it's with the whole house, such that even as an MP within Kenya Kwanza, you have a responsibility to oversight that. That's the duty of the So I am hoping that Raila gets this position so that he exits. Possibly he will get an opportunity to have a minority that can now do its job in parliament.
That's it. Just hold on. Odanya, but in the notes of, and Sankara, I really need you to watch the sentiments of One Kimani Ichung'wah at that opening ceremony in that retreat in Naivasha, because they opened it, it came back to the National House to make sure that what he had promised the president, and I don't know whether to say as a member of parliament or as a majority leader in the National House, is what he did. Let's take a look. Once we come back, then these gentlemen are going to weigh in on whether it's ever okay for Kimani Ichung'wah as an elected member of parliament to come in and say that on this one, we promise you, before the next paycheck, it's going to be legal, in as much as we are concerned. Let's take a look.
In such sessions to honor sermons.
Our cabinet secretaries, every time you find an opportunity to come and answer to a question or to a statement requested by a member of parliament, please take that time as also an opportunity to espouse on government policy. And maybe, for instance, I don't know, C.S. Eliud Owalo has not been there, for instance. If you get an opportunity to answer to a question, take that opportunity to also challenge us as members of parliament to also be a bit quick in pushing through government agenda, especially something like the ICT hubs.
Ichung'wah further emphasized on the importance of the sessions, as it was not only a conversation with legislators, but also an opportunity to appraise Kenya's own government projects being implemented in their respective dockets.
And by speaking to members of parliament from the floor of the House, you will also have an opportunity to speak to the country at a prime time when many Kenyans are watching. And I'm happy cabinet secretaries like the Honorable Kipchumba Murkomen has done very well in taking advantage of even very difficult questions.
With the President William Ruto calling on MPs to pass the Affordable Housing Bill, the majority leaders from both houses promised to ensure the bill is passed in the next few days.
Your Excellency, we also have the national government administration laws that are also bound to come to the Assembly this session. Also the NADCO report, our Affordable Housing Bill, which, Your Excellency, I'm happy to report we began debate last week on Thursday, so that we're able to conclude with that debate and be able to process the bill forward to the Senate so that they're able to advertise it by Friday, do their public participation, and we get a new affordable housing bill.
You see, and it's a good thing we've ended like that. And Sankara, I'm going to cross to you. You see, he says by Friday. I don't know, that's why I told you that is it ever okay for him to actually stand in front of the nation? He wasn't speaking to his party leader. This is a televised event. And say, by Friday. Now, I don't know. And I told you, indulge us this morning. Just number one, we know that indeed this particular bill went through the second reading yesterday. Good. And then, if you go to the, after the second reading, you're supposed to go to the committee stage. And Shilev, you can, again, pull up that video of the Speaker of the National Assembly telling members of the minority side that if you have anything that the committee can deliberate on, you have until today noon. But we're making notes this morning, Ondanyo. Shilev, you can pull it up. At that point where, towards the end of that story where Moses Wetangula is talking about if you do have any issue with this particular amendments, then you can actually talk to us by Friday noon. And for the sake of our audience that's watching this morning, let's take a look at those sentiments of one Moses Wetangula so we can marry this conversation this morning.
And I and your majority colleague, you both sit in the House Business Committee. You know what we passed. However, in accordance with our standing orders, I'll direct that any member who has any amendments to file, your deadline is noon tomorrow.
Ian Keitani, Lookuptv.
Daniel, we're making notes this morning. At that retreat in Naivasha, majority leader Kimani Ichung'wah says by Friday, we're going to give you this bill. Moses Wetangula, the leader of the National House Business, says, well, if you have anything, and you guys sit in that finance committee, if you have anything, your deadline for this is 12 noon today. And remember, today afternoon, we do expect that this particular bill is going to go through the third reading. So in the committee stage, that's where all the deliberations of all those members of the opposing side of this bill, essentially they gave a lot of deliberations. And all of them, they stood up and vehemently talked about this particular bill. So guess what? They have until noon. And you do expect today that this particular bill is going to go through the third reading. Which one I'm telling you, are we reading a script that has already been drawn to us? The major complaints or majority of the critics of this particular government, they say that they wonder how a bill can be passed within 2 days.
Simba, let me start by saying the person who should be asking themselves a question is the Kenyan voter. When we are having this conversation, I'm hoping the Kenyan voter is asking themselves.
They're never going to ask themselves this question.
I'm saying, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Can you imagine you elected someone who is now being directed by someone who is representing other people, and we are here saying, ask yourself what the second thing I want to tell you, there's someone called Kubler-Ross.
Yes.
Kubler-Ross grief cycle. The first stage in the grief cycle is called denial. Getting over that stage is the most dangerous. And that's why I always say, the first thing you need to do to have peace in this world, learn to operate within the realities of life.
What is the reality in this particular
this particular case, the first reality is that those are the standing orders. That's why the speaker said, according to our standing orders. So as of this moment, the standing orders, unless you are MP or you are MP, those who think that those standing orders are not correct, stand up in parliament instead of absconding to change the standing orders. We will operate under those bad standing orders. The law will remain as it is until the person you elected to go to parliament changes it without running away. 2, if the standing orders provide for 7 days, maximum of 7, within 7 days, what stops it from happening in day 1? Within 7, if that is the law we have. That's why I'm talking about reality. So if the standing order says within 14 days, day 1 is within 14 days. As long as
it does not eat them.
Yes.
Also, these are the realities. Just hold on.
The conversation we are having, the conversation we are having, because is when I speak here, Simba, I'm not talking to the president, I'm talking to Kenyans.
But then, Odonyo, you gotta also speak to the reality on the ground. You're the one who's talking about reality. I mean, if indeed this is what it is, then, and you started by saying, well, this parliament, it doesn't look like it's captured. It just, members of parliament are saying it's captured, but it's not. But when we're seeing that particular script right there, and no, they didn't release it deliberately. I mean, it's very, very easy for you to marry those things by Friday, by noon, by the end of this week, before the next paycheck. We're going to give you this. Is that not a directive? If you're going to talk about capturing, it's right there. You do that. I'm waiting to see exactly what you're going to do.
Simba,
is that not parliament capture?
The only person you can capture is someone who doesn't know their responsibility. So when they are floating around in the water, any net can capture them. But someone who knows their responsibility already has an organized, and that's why I'm telling you, when a bill is coming in parliament, whether it's a written script or not, it's your responsibility to organize the ideas of your people so that when that conversation is going on, you lend the voice of your people to that bill. It does not matter whether, that's the last time I told you, my friend, when we go for public participation, 50 million Kenyans, if they were to all bring ideas and put them on the table, how many lorries of ideas will we have? But we have to refine them and pick some and leave some. Some that we leave might be applied as amendments. And that's why public participation is not about you forcing your idea into, it's about you expressing yourself. That in the process, I was telling you, in this forum, as we are having this conversation, I may not like my friend, I may not like you, but you might say something that I may not agree with here. But when I go home, if I have a functional brain, I will note it and I will implement it.
Sankara, I mean, marry those notes. I like the way Udonyo is saying, well, I'm not going to speak to them. I mean, the women came up with a standing order that says, well, this is how we're going to operate on this particular bill. And everybody says, yes, we do agree with those standing orders in whatever way they were. The complaint, and I'm telling you the critics of this particular, and I've seen a lot of leaders speak about that we have members of parliament who have a very controversial bill that has not even gone through public participation. If you do remember this one again, the courts essentially red flagged it because they said, well, public participation on it was not essentially done, so you got to go back. That they sit and they pass a bill within 2 sittings. They say, what is that? That's the lawmaking process doesn't envision that. This one, all the way from that Naivasha retreat, Kimani Ichung'wah was saying, well, by Friday. The Speaker of the National House saying, well, if you do have anything that the committee stage can look into, the deadline is tomorrow, 12 noon. You can see it's before the next paycheck.
So our whole country and our whole legislative process has been turned into a command signal where someone is calling shots from somewhere. I know it is President William Ruto who wants this bill passed even as early as yesterday. But because we have some legal bumps, it provides some breaks to his rush. But in his own idea, if William Ruto, because I've critically analyzed his modus operandi, is someone who would wish that he wakes up, proposes something, directs it to Parliament, all MPs rush there and pass it and get him a call that, sir, it's done. Unfortunately, he was elected in the wrong era. That would only happen before President Moi took over. Now we are in the era of the 2010 Constitution. The law is not a creative convenience. But all said and done, we are arguing about something that, as a political analyst, it's my duty to educate our viewers. Before a bill comes into a law, there are critical processes that it has to go through. A bill is just a proposed piece of legislation that is debated and enacted into a law. The process emanates from introduction of the bill in the House. It's called the first reading. During the first reading, no debates, no votes are taken. The bill is committed to relevant departmental committees. Here, we do 3 things. Number 1, we invite submissions of memoranda. We hold public hearings, or they called public participation, in adherence to Article 241. We also hold consultations with relevant stakeholders. Then we go to the second phase, that is second reading. There it is very peculiar. We only do the merits and demerits of the bill. What Wetangula was saying ought to have been done in the third reading. In the third reading, it composes the entire House committee. In that particular reading, we do scrutiny of the bill. It is done by the entire committee, and the scrutiny is to ensure it is done by clause. So it is the responsibility of a sober legislator to pinpoint that particular bill that is before the House, clause by clause, and reference. Mr. Speaker, the article blah blah in reference to particular laws, this goes this way. That's what we call scrutiny. You cannot scrutinize in absentia. That is wrong. After that committee stage, the committee reports to the House. After the report stage, now it goes to the third reading. And at the third reading, it is very peculiar. I would read for you what the Constitution says. This marks the final stage of a bill in the National Assembly, as final vote is taken on this stage. Thereafter, no further substantive amendments are considered. After the third reading, it is presented to the presidential assent. And the law is clear that once a bill is passed by the House, the Speaker of the National Assembly shall present it to the President if the bill is not concerning counties. The topic in conversation is a devolved function. So the entire thing is illegal. And I believe we'll block it even in courts, because the courts have the powers to do so. Courts, the executive, and the Parliament, all these people are employees working on donated powers by the people. So they act in checks and balance. No one is above the other. So at that particular stage, the bill is assented by the President within 7 to 14 days. The President can either assent or reject the bill with the reservations. And it is sent back to the House for considerations within the within that reservations. My only worry is when Kimani Ichung'wah stands before President William Ruto and says they are going to do everything possible within their means to ensure that the bill is passed.
Yes.
My only question is the legality aspect. You know, the laws are there to be followed, not to be ignored. But the moment, as a country, we elect people who has no information of their history and their possible future, then the constitution becomes an option and not a standard of reference.
Yes.
That is what we have today. The MP sought to, Kimani Ichung'wah, he ought to have instilled in his own common sense the legal process of enacting a bill into a law before he would rise to please President William Ruto that we are going to do this and that within those days. So as long as this particular procedure is not adhered to,
yes,
the entire process still becomes null and void.
Does it?
Because
yes, Sankara, and I'm sorry to cut you short there. If you do remember when the AG appeared before that parliamentary committee talking about why this particular bill has essentially gone into headwinds at the courts, he said that you can, and I want to tell you what he said. He said, you cannot cheat yourselves. This particular affordable housing agenda essentially also involved the county. So whether we like it or not, this particular motion or bill has to go to the Senate. The Senate will discuss it. Now, once the Senate is also done discussing it, then you guys are going to marry what the Senate has told you before you actually come and sit and pass this as law.
Yes.
Guess what the Senate was discussing yesterday, Sankara? The Senate was essentially talking about the NATCO report, but we saw vehement submissions from one Senator Roba. It's a question that I want to ask you again. That there's somebody somewhere who's saying, yeah, just pass it. As long as we pass it into law, by the time again somebody challenges it, we've already started collecting. Remember, it's been a month since the court stopped it. Do you feel there's a push for, yes, we know what we're supposed to do, but hey guys, we got to keep on collecting by this Friday?
You know what? And allow me deviate in the interest of defense. All this urge to have too much money collected in one single basket is very dangerous for economic progress of this country. The aim is not to stop corruption. Neither does it aim to ensure efficiency of service delivery. The aim is to entice financial institutions on how solid collateral base we have as a country. You know, if William Ruto collects money in one single pay bill system and that money is channeled into one account, then he wants to take loan as he loves loan. He will go to China and tell them, you know what, I have money, man. Look at what is in my account. How much do you have? I have almost 6 billion. This money has been collected within 2 months. So if you give me a loan of 300 billion, this is something I can repay in a particular point duration. It is not in the interest of the people. These particular things that William Ruto, the president, says that he is doing to ensure that corruption is limited. In fact, online corruption or online fraud is the worst form of corruption. There is paperwork. If you have background in accounting and economics, there is no way an institution will spend without accounting. There is always receipts and duplicates. Those duplicates, they are there for audit. If you work in a procurement firm, I have background in public procurement, you will always provide the duplicates. When the auditors come, that is what they in fact, we even have triplicates. So there's no point of argument that all we are doing is to ensure efficiency. So I was just deviating a bit to try and explain to you the idea behind this. But the bottom line still remains, just as I've said, the moment we elect people who recognize us not where they come from, and they do not even have the urge to anticipate and preempt where they're headed to, the Constitution and the rule of law, which is the standard reference, ceases to become a standard point of reference and becomes an option. And that's why people like Kimani Ichung'wah would still tend to praise or please President William Ruto, regardless of the legal standings. That if a bill was to be passed legally in Parliament adhering to all the processes aligned in that constitution, then that bill may take almost a month or so. But here we have a group of individuals who want to enact a bill into a law within 2 days. They go retreat, they take their package home, then they rush to parliament and they say, Mr. President, we're going to do everything possible. The problem is not even President William Ruto. William Ruto can be managed. Supposedly we had sober people who knows what they're supposed to be doing in parliament. We don't need to bother Raila Amolo Odinga as the opposition leader.
Yes.
After all, our constitution is an hybrid. If you look at the roles that Raila plays, it's a duplicate of the roles that a minority whip should be playing, right? So it is, everything lies within parliament. In fact, just as he has said, I also pray that Raila exits Kenya's political matrix so that we cease to take shots from Moi political orphans. Instead, have a fresh breed of leaders, people who are going to stand with the 21st century mentality and address the 21st century problems amicably. Because for now, we have political orphans. There are people who are elected because they love Raila Amolo Odinga. And that's why the moment they get to parliament, they fail to represent the people. They say, Baba has said, it is okay. You can be a political sycophant, but still remain an effective leader, as long as you know what you are doing in parliament.
Just one, gentlemen. That part is what takes us to our first break right here on the morning drift. Because once we come back then, there's this conversation of there's so much at stake now with what is in that national house, to the point that it will be very easy for the government to come in and say, see, Odonyo, if you don't support it, then that means we're going to buy you from getting this, what you need. Case in point, the Senate yesterday tabled that report, NATCO report, and if you do remember as well, that particular motion has come up in the National House where they said we are also going to pass that particular or adopt those proposals of the NATCO report. Is it therefore, are the members of parliament between a rock and a hard place when it comes to supporting government agenda right now, Odonyo? Because they know if you do not support it, these guys here on this other side are looking at us and they have the numbers. They can actually stop us from getting what we want in those proposals in the NATCO report. Is it what it is? Has RUTO finally got the opposition members of parliament in a place where he needed them? Because if you say no, it's very easy for him to say, well, make sure it fails, because they've not supported us on this as well. Once we come back right here on the morning drift, we're going to look at a couple of other issues as well. Kalonzo Musyoka is a man now who's speaking and is hitting the government as well. He's saying, stop those taxes, it's not working, and is calling for the same members of parliament in the Azimio coalition who missed those sittings yesterday to hit the government so that they stop increasing levies and taxes. This morning, we'll also be telling you about petroleum products that have been hit with 3 times the tax that they were before. Is it working? Is it not working? And Kalonzo, is he the man? Once we come back right here on the morning drift.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
There is a biblical quotation that says, whoever gives to an orphan lends to God. Today was a great day for us. We have received and hosted a wonderful and great team from Tatua Tatu who have come to make a day brighter for these kids and for our beneficiaries.
I thank you, Tatua number 3, for coming. May God bless you, and the gates of Rafiki are ever open, and you are welcome and welcome again.
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0707 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
As I said, welcome back to the Morning Drift. Let's then chat. The next 30 minutes of this particular conversation are going to be about this particular housing levy that we've been promised, by the way, but this Friday, and that's 2 days away from now. It's going to be law, and there's a man who's waiting for it, is the president, and we're pretty sure he's going to ascend to it, and fast at that, because we know where his heart is. All right, but one man is speaking, man. One Kalonzo Musyoka, who has been seen as the mantle in then putting sense in the government. He was speaking yesterday, and he faulted majority of members of parliament for not pushing the government enough to reduce taxes and also conform. Let's take a look. Once we come back, this gentleman would essentially be weighing in on that issue. Is it forced enough? When Kalonzo Musyoka speaks, does he speak with the voice of a man who's just about to take, and I say, a sabbatical from local politics? Let's take a look.
According to the report, 1,280 of the 53,000, and now I've run out of the 53,599 instances that were referred to the Kenya National Examinations Council had their certificates confirmed to be fake.
Analyzing the Kenya Kwanza government governorship, Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka has expressed concerns against RUTO's ignorance towards issues affecting Kenyans, saying that they are the same issues that led to DRC into a blaze.
If you mess up with the composition of a country's national defense forces, you have created a problem that will be impossible to cure, particularly in our region. US truly has been involved in trying to help our countries in the neighborhood to get life back on course. As we speak, there's a huge conflict in the DRC, itself a recent member of the East African Community. I'm told that the city of Goma may fall, it may not fall.
Additionally, Kalonzo Musyoka has criticized RUTO's directive that legislators early to the government should toe the line, irrational of what Kenyans are going through. Kalonzo continued to say that these are characteristics of a dictator.
That you want your child to become a member of the KDF, you have to part with 700,000 Kenya shillings. That is how bad things are, bad governance.
Nevertheless, he didn't hesitate to attack the high rise of corruption cases in the country, attributing them to poor leadership. Kalonzo, speaking in Lake Naivasha Resort during the ICS forum, he said that recent studies indicated that 10 tribes in the country had taken over 80% job opportunities in the county's employment equality, dropping from 21% to 13% in a span of 17 months. The Kenya Kwanza government has been in power.
CIC 2023 audit report, which reviews concerning patterns in employment diversity among Kenya's 47 counties. Only 10 tribes account for nearly 80% of county employment, while 29 other tribes, call them communities, account for just 1% of county work prospects.
Kalonzo incessantly tabled security concerns after the president declared Kenya a visa-free country, alleging that this is putting the country at risk.
William Ruto has even declared this country visa-free, so watch out for others who may come from very difficult destinations to come to our country. But Kenyans themselves must of necessity do what you're doing.
Ruga Ival, Lookuptv.
That's it. The Kennedy just before we went on break. I asked you whether it's very possible that there's some sweets that have been dangled to that national house now. And the opposition knows very well that we can't keep on pushing this government because those sweets, we do need them by the end of the day. Is it very hard to push the government as the opposition right now, knowing very well that your party leader or your coalition leader, Raila Amolo Odinga, is also saying, well, we gotta pass this, areas around the opposition that will give positions to majority of leaders in that group that are positionless right now, that issues about CDF, entrenchment kitty, which majority of those members of parliament need ratified so they have full control. Is it easy to tell them, well, if you don't support it, we're gonna meet when that report comes?
I think before I comment on that, I would like to, I will seek to inform my brother with his permission on the issue of the single pay bill. The idea behind the single pay bill was premised on the fact that there is something called AIA, appropriation in aid, in some state corporations, where we have state corporations that collect.
Yes.
Those mostly regulator authorities and other agencies that collect money. The tendency has been that at the point of budgeting and seeking allocation from Treasury, there are some that underreport their collections so that they can still get the Treasury allocation while also having this money they collect. So the purpose of this actually is not to collect money in one account. This 222 is a conveyor. What the government is trying to create is a system where all monies collected by government agencies pass through one system even as they go to their individual accounts. So that at the point of budgeting, Treasury already knows what KEBS collected, what KRA collected, what all other government AFA and all other NEMA collected, so that as NEMA are seeking funding, Treasury already knows what they collect because it's in the system, so that we are just saying, we are just adding you on what you collect, or if you collect in excess, you give it back. So that is the reason.
Allow me also informed you
yes.
That I was patiently waiting for you to inform me. It is right. Before we went to court, all these pros and cons were done. We did SWOT analysis of the entire thing you're trying to put. The justification still fails to meet the objective. The objective is a decoy behind something else that it's not for this discussion, because supposedly we start engaging on this, we'll have an entire day. Your submissions may be right, and I quote, may be right. My opinion still maintains, in my own capacity, that the entire idea is, it wasn't well thought of as far as transparency is concerned. Remember, all these things, it is not the duty of those particular institutions to hide sensitive financial information from the government or from audit. Underreporting or reporting any money that goes through a parastatal goes through a particular way. So there's someone sleeping on his job somewhere, and that's why these people are underreporting. You cannot overhaul the entire system because two people have committed a crime. Supposedly, you want to say now that we are 50 plus millions of Kenyans.
Yes.
Just because 100,000 people decide to do something, you cannot pass a sentence to criminalize the entire 50 population. Deal with those people first. Tell us how best you've dealt with them. But that was not our discussion for today.
But I am glad that you said your opinion still stands.
Yes.
And I respect it.
You know, it is the art of
so,
in mind to respect other to entertain other people's thoughts and opinions respectively, respectfully, in as much as you may not agree to them. Yes.
And I respect your opinion.
Yeah, I equally respect
So basically, on the issue of the horse trading, the biggest challenge we have as a democracy, I told you we mobilize around numbers, and numbers come with stomachs to feed. The biggest challenge we have is that we live in a country where the first responsibility of an election loser is to look for a job from the election winner. That's the challenge we have. Because these people, their intention, he talked about politics and leadership. There's a very big difference, and that's why in Kenya we think that all politicians are leaders. And that's why when we talk of having academic qualification, they say leaders come from God. Does God make budgets in heaven? I used to ask people, how can a class 4 drop out in Nairobi oversight? During the days of Kidero, I used to ask, how can a former tout or a boda rider oversight a PhD holder like Evans Kidero? You are joking with the law. Basically what he's saying is, I miss the days when we used to have a shadow cabinet, where we have a government that is coming with a finance bill. But then we have an opposition. Those days we used to have an opposition that has its own finance minister coming up with an alternative finance bill that is going to either enrich and such that even the government has something to borrow from.
Is that what is missing from the opposition?
What we are missing today is we don't have. It surprises me that an opposition with senior councils, including Kalonzo Musyoka, Otiende Amolo, do not know that there's nothing like the opposition. That's why we confined the oversight role and the minority role to parliament. Because parliament is supposed to have to be a house of informed, knowledgeable, learned, exposed people who, regardless of their position or political alignment or affiliations, can come to that house and generate ideas that enrich whatever discussions are going on. And then, so what we are seeing now, of course, definitely that's what is happening. Because devoid of ideas, then we remain around mobilizing around our interests. That is what is happening. And the problem now, the interests, have, we call it hierarchies. When it comes to interest, the hierarchies. Today, what Kalonzo is saying, and I'm offended to hear the senior counsel.
Yes.
I just wanted to mention something. I am offended to hear the senior counsel who has aspirations of becoming president saying the president is ignorant of the plight of Kenyans, without mentioning that constitutionally as a senior counsel, the president is not supposed to go to Kanyamukago, Nyali, and be informed of the ideas of the people. It's the members of parliament who are supposed to sit down with their people.
Yes.
I wish he would educate his members of opposition on that. They go to the villages, they collect the issues of the people regarding their problems and what. Once those issues have been collected, they take them to parliament either in form of a bill or as a contribution to the bill in the house, which now becomes law. That you are supposed to represent your people in parliament. Representation is ideological, where you contribute to bills, you contribute to the laws that govern the people. You challenge policies through the established structures. But because we are devoid of such a conversation, you realize people talk, even the so-called opposition, people are talking to capture the attention. Everyone is struggling to capture the attention of the master in every corner, so that when that table is being set up, they have a seat on that table. And that's the problem of having people who do not, because ideological compliance is about you as a person being able to independently generate solutions that are in line with the needs of your people.
Just before I cross over to Sankara, I'm going to come to you on this particular one. I like the way you say that, well, you're disappointed in one Kalonzo Musyoka. What would you have liked for him to talk about? The thing is, we do know Raila Amolo Odinga is not in a country currently. He's in Germany. Yesterday was showing us exactly how he went back to his former high school in Germany and met students, university, and met students. Good. The question is, upon the results of the voting yesterday at the National House, there's something that the opposition has been championing for or pushing the government not to implement. Would you have liked for Kalonzo Musyoka to also touch on this particular issue? If we may on it, He didn't call a press conference on it. It's a thing that his side has been pushing for. He didn't even reprimand the members of parliament who didn't show up. You saw what the president did the other day in Naivasha. The majority of you, when we have very important house business to pass on, you are not there. Seems that the members of the Kenya Kwanza side listened to the president. They turned out in large numbers and voted for it. Would you have liked for him to also touch on this particular issue? In fact, Odwenyo, let Sankara go on to that particular issue.
Simba, accountability is a very important aspect in leadership.
Yes.
When we preach water, we should definitely align ourselves to water. Kalonzo Musyoka ought to have been outstanding in his accusations and say, we as Azimio, particularly as the party leader of Wiper, 10 of my MPs voted against that particular bill. We will be acting on accountability perspective. But Kenya is in a very precarious position and dangerous trajectory. We have two groups of robbers robbing from two different dimensions. One is robbing you directly through oppression and tyranny of numbers. The other one is robbing you by shouting at the robber while doing nothing. You see, you are being robbed. The Kenya Kwanza administration is robbing Kenyans. They are using tyranny of numbers, and they are using the law enforcement agencies to intimidate, frustrate, and have their agenda sail through. Then we have another group of investors called the so-called opposition. These are people with vested interest who are aiding or abetting this crime by purporting to be shouting and raising alarm on that particular thing going on, but in real sense, their involvement ends with the razzmatazz, nothing else. So whatever it is that's happening, that's why I'm trying to draw a picture of robbery in public. One is robbing from you directly and physically, then the other one is purporting to be providing moral support by just shouting, and he's looking at who is seeing me while shouting. If he sees that the robber squad is looking at him, they cease to shout. That's what our opposition is doing. But again, all said and done, it is not the role of opposition entirely to put the government on checks and balance. We have the responsibility within the house.
Yes.
This opposition is not a group of people from nowhere. It is composed of minority membership in parliament. So the entire thing draws back to parliament. And that's why I do say, and I will still repeat, the moment we elect people based on their political party affiliation and sailing political coalitions and fail to scrutinize their personality, character, integrity, and suitability, money is not acumen of leadership. We will fail this country terribly.
Tazan, but when it comes to the voice of Kalonzo Musyoka in this particular issue, I mean, he's a man who's been fronting himself as, well, the next in line on this particular, his party has also fronted him on this particular issue. If you listen to the difference in voice of one Kalonzo Musyoka and the president in reprimanding members of parliament for failing to appear during important debates that concern his agenda. Remember, this also concerned the minority in parliament. Somebody would say, had they all turned out, we might be having a different result.
Absolutely.
Why is he not reprimanding them?
You know, I've told you a story of two robbers robbing from 2 points of dimensions. Kalonzo is affiliated to Azimio. At this point in time, we have political trade going on between the government and the opposition.
Yes.
The opposition is lobbying for one of their own to ascend to a particular seat. The opposition, which is composed of MPs from the minority, are together with MPs from the majority to steal from Kenyans through the enactment of this CDF staffs into the constitution. So these people are doing barter trade. We will pass the NADCO report. Help us pass the finance bill. We will give Raila the job. You have to act like you are protesting, but in silence. But all said and done.
If I may add something. If I may add something. You see, originally in the NADCO report, there's something that was very critical to the opposition. One of them is the leader
of opposition.
Originally, that position was supposed to, Raila is the de facto, was supposed to
leader of.
Now, they have created another opportunity for Raila, which means now an opportunity has come up for Kalonzo.
So Kalonzo,
are we assuming that Kalonzo is going to take up the
position? When Raila assumes the position of AU chair, God willing,
yes,
as everyone is praying,
yes,
we will remain as the de facto position leader.
For so many leaders in that particular
the hierarchy of leadership in azimio,
yes,
based on competency and experience,
yes,
Kalonzo will suit that position. So the entire idea is to capture and castrate this nation from the opposition perspective to parliamentary perspective.
Is that why
William Ruto is a schemer?
Is that why Kalonzo Musyoka has not come out vehemently to say, well, where were you? How did you fail to turn up for that?
As a politician, yes, I've been close to politics and to power.
Yes.
Power is sweet. A politician, I'm not saying a leader, I'm saying a politician will never cease to develop more love and urge to have more power.
Okay.
So Kalonzo cannot fail to support what will give him chauffeurs and security and perks here and there. He will support it. So just as he has put it, this is a game plan. Ruto wants to remain you see, he's the commander-in-chief. He wants to be now the practical commander-in-chief, calling shots everywhere. When Raila is in AU, Kalonzo is in government. Because
I think, contrary to that, I would like to mention something. I personally believe Ruto is the president. President Ruto is the president of the Republic of Kenya. I don't think Raila, the president, needs an exit of Raila or Kalonzo for him to govern. He already has he already has the mandate of the people. One, yes. Two, he has the majority in parliament.
Yes.
So you know,
Kennedy, you talked of reality, but
yes,
here you are deviating from reality.
I am not
there is a big difference between parliamentary majority and popular legitimacy. If you are very keen as a scholar, one of the biggest challenges William Ruto is battling in this regime is popular legitimacy. In as much as allow me inform you.
Yes, continue.
Humbly, allow me inform you. In the recent past, you've seen the president facing hostilities in areas that he goes to address on particular issue from the people. That is, in layman's language, what we refer to as popular legitimacy. In as much as he was elected by the people, you talked of something. I tend to believe you don't forget too fast. The laws that are made, they're not made because there are no laws. They are adjusted because new ideas come. Just as the Constitution remains to be a living document, a human mindset is never fixed. And therefore, it adjusts dependent on prevailing circumstances. The prevailing political circumstances and economic situation may not favor William Ruto, the president, when it comes to popular legitimacy. And this is a campaign that has been ignited and sustained by the opposition. For William Ruto to survive politically, now we are talking as politicians, he needs to tame this consistently growing agitation. By doing so, he will safeguard Raila and also put Kalonzo safe in the docket. Once this is done, you know, there is always that one person that everyone looks up to get direction from. So, all said and done, I would still tell you this. William Ruto, the president, really needs Raila to exit the political arena in Kenya for him to govern in peace. Especially post-2020, post this era, the 5 years. 2027, the political matrix may not favor him that much.
Now,
he is scheming post that. So, in as much as you may not agree to that, again, You know, it's my opinion. Just as I said,
the
responsibility
yes,
of the speaker to speak, not the listener to hear.
When you look at why the government been wanting to support Raila Amolo Odinga so much, Enes, I mean, it's not common where you find that the government is really supporting the opposition leader to ascend to a bigger role. What would be the underlying reason as why they really want Raila Amolo Odinga to get this job? Could it be because of issues like that? I'm going to point you up to sometime last year where even Raila Amolo Odinga was a petitioner on these housing issues that we're talking about here.
You see, while I respect the opinion of my comrade, I would also like to ask, what does the Constitution prescribe? As intellectuals, are we supposed to rely more on emotions and perceptions or on logic and what the Constitution dictates? Where does a leader get their legitimacy? Is it from the constitutional provisions or is it from our emotional perceptions?
Kennedy,
Sankara, I'm going to come back to you so you respond. Yes, Odenya.
So when we are having this conversation, we need to understand. As a person, I believe, that's why I mentioned, we can do all these things but still operate within the precincts of the law.
Yes.
As intellectuals, I believe we need to get to a point where we inform Kenya, even if it's not emotionally compliant and sensational enough to excite them, we need to inform them on what is supposed to happen. This perceptive approach to leadership is what has led to where we are, where we think because people are popular, we strive in populism, where we've made the people believe that there is legitimacy other than the constitutional legitimacy. And that's why we believe, history, I'm sure, is intellectual enough to understand the history of some of these things, the so-called legitimacy. We understand. I'm an historian. I understand what happened in 2001 after the lack of legitimacy of 1997. We understand what happened in 2007 after the lack of legitimacy. We understand what happened in 2017 after the lack of legitimacy. So, legitimacy, the moment you present yourself as a candidate, you will get your legitimacy by being elected. You know, and that's why as a person I believe we seek seats politically because democracy is political. But once we get those seats or we lose them, we are supposed to go back to what the constitutions provide. So that as we are educating people, we have every mechanism in our constitution that gets people to those political positions. And we also have mechanisms that can challenge them. So personally, I believe as people who have gone to school, I believe it's very disrespectful to the intelligence of Kenyans to tell them there's any other way that legitimizes a leader other than what is provided in the Constitution.
On the basis of who can mobilize the country against some decisions that the government is making. We've seen it's Raila Amolo Odinga who's been able to do that time and time again. We just said that on this particular issue, that indeed for the government to want to have its way, they want to keep him busy.
You see, and that's where he go back to our point of emotionalism. Politics is the mobilization of and organization of resources to capture power. Being a mobilizer doesn't mean you're a leader. You just have something in you that can captivate them onto you. But that mobilization, there are elements of cultism. That's how cults are built. Then two, leadership is the mobilization of resources and organization of resources to deliver service to the people. So what I am saying is, yes, we agree he's a mobilizer and he has built that brand. The fact that you can mobilize does not give you the authority.
Wouldn't the president be happy if he was a leader and a mobilizer at the same time? Is that not what makes you
Simba? Before you go to him, I try to be as apolitical as possible, despite my affiliation or what. The constitutional grants us the right to affiliate in whichever way. That doesn't. That does not mean that we surrender the right to independent thought. What I am saying is,
would the president not be comfortable knowing very well that he's a mobilizer?
The president does not need comfort to govern.
That is what you think.
Yes.
That is what you think.
Yes.
You are arguing as a scholar.
Yes.
My namesake. You are arguing as a scholar.
I respected your opinion and I respected
I even respect
Can you also give me an opportunity?
You are arguing as a scholar.
Odonyo, can you clear on that particular? Can you clear on that particular point before I cross to
I
him?
cannot clear
Yes.
when I'm being interrupted.
Okay.
I told him I respect his opinion.
Odonyo, clear.
The purpose of this show is for intellectuals like us to come here and sharpen contradictions.
Does that, Odonyo?
Sharpening contradictions means you give me an opportunity to give my opinion, and then you counter it or you enrich the conversation. What I am saying is, in so much as we are used to the excitement of politics, I believe we are doing our grandmothers, our mothers, our brothers and sisters in the village who are not exposed to the constitution and the law as we are, by exciting them and telling them there is any other way of gaining leadership legitimacy of political public positional legitimacy other than the constitution. So what I'm saying is, in so much as we may say that, okay, he's a mobilizer, which all of us agree, but I wish we could be mobilizing not just people to go and demonstrate or disrupt service delivery, but I wish we could be mobilizing resources even from our own counties. Because when we talk about legitimacy, then we have devolution. What is that mobilization? Helping the country in terms of ideology.
Yes, Sankara, let me point you to my and you're going to have that chance because I'm on you now. Let me just point you out to why this conversation is essentially gone to this particular side. That even Kalonzo Musyoka speaking on this particular issue, reprimanding parliamentarians for absconding duty, just like you put it, it's going to be hard. They look like they know what is at stake if they go beyond the script. Is that what it is?
The game is already planned. I told you we are talking of two robbers robbing from two different dimensions.
Does it?
But all said and done, I didn't want to respond to Kennedy, but let us be realistic. In political science, popular legitimacy just refers to that popular acceptance and recognition of by the people of the authority of a ruling regime like the Kenya Kwanza. So it has nothing to do with going to the ballot. You have the power you've been given by the people, yes, through majority win. But again, I've said things change. Circumstances, prevailing circumstances are never constant. They fail, they change. Yes. In that change process, they tend to persuade people's opinions and beliefs to a particular point. By saying so, that President William Ruto or the Kenya Kwanza government has the moral authority and the legal authority, but they face a challenge when it comes to popular legitimacy, where the people are rebelling. These are political concepts. People are rebelling in, before them and right before them. You know, hostility have been faced. Some of the MPs, after the controversial finance bill, they would not even visit their constituents. I believe, Simba, you are aware of that. Yes, they were being chased out of their political constituents, their constituents or areas of jurisdiction. That do not withdraw the power of being an MP from them, but you are a leader. Can you face your people and have a conversation with them? No, because... Are
you also alive to the fact that sometimes there's mobilization against?
You requested me to give you time.
I'm asking,
I will not respond as you want. But let me give out my points.
Sankara,
you
continue.
refused
Sankara, just continue
so,
the point. Yes.
Whether it is mobilization or not, I am a politician. Besides being a leader, I have practiced politics. Actually, I have worked with President William Ruto through his campaigns. All these things that are done and seen here, I have more information than what it takes, what the ordinary mwananchi knows about what they see happening. So, I'm saying that parliamentary popularity and popular legitimacy, those are two different things. You may have numbers in parliament, but the people are not happy with the numbers you have in parliament. So that puts everything to halt.
Yes.
The push to have Raila go to AU, it still goes back to what I'm saying. In as much as President William Ruto was elected by the people, he himself has said, give us time. What would prompt our old president who has been elected to tell people, awa majama watupe nafasi tufanye kazi? What does that tell you, Kennedy? There is some room that these people are making too smaller for the president and his court to govern. To have that room and experience the ambience in that room, he needs these people to be kept busy.
Yes.
So it is a political matrix. In politics, there is existence of what is legally enshrined. But again, politics is dynamic, but I do say politics is dynamically dynamic. There are a lot of things that if we were to go the constitutional way, we will miss it. And that's where political goodwill comes in. Why would every leader call on political goodwill? It is because there must be the willingness from the leaders for the leader to be of goodwill, it must come from the people.
Yes.
So all said and done, this is a political matrix, and at the end of the day, the loser will be the people of Kenya. It is not about anyone. Because once Kalonzo is settled,
yes,
you know, Kalonzo has placed himself as a leader and as a politician. Raila Amolo Odinga has been a leader. Actually, all these figures have led this country in very sensitive leadership dockets before. So these are people who knows the heart of politics. They know how to play and navigate, but the constant currency that must be kept busy is the people. So by the time the president is lobbying for the opposition leader to go to AU, he is silently creating position for Kalonzo Musyoka. They are transacting on the NADCO committee report. The finance bill is being rushed to parliament to be enacted from a bill into a law within 2 days. At the end of the day, who loses in this entire matrix? It is the people.
So we just want to point you out, and just be quick on this because there are the other issues, gentlemen, that I want us to touch on this morning before we step up. We cannot miss to touch on them. That when it comes to putting these members of parliament in shape now, we're already seeing what the wind is telling us. We've not, I can confirm that we as Lookuptv has not been invited to any presser by the opposition side on what transpired at Parliament yesterday, and we're still waiting to see exactly what's going to happen today. Maybe they're waiting for the end of this product, but we've already seen exactly what's going to happen. We do expect that by Friday, this will be done and dusted, if the promise for Kimani Ichung'wah is going to go by. That indeed, because of the NADCO report, because of the issues with Raila Amolo Odinga now, that the voice of the members of Parliament is subdued now. You can't say so much on this particular one. What is the next step for the opposition side, Sankara?
I think the opposition is in a very dangerous position now. They have their interest to execute, but again they have the responsibility from the people. As much as in our constitution, we don't have that role of opposition recognized by the constitution, but that is the reality. It is not in error that the person Raila Amolo Odinga has been called the opposition leader. We have that perception, but not in the constitution. So there is the reality being ideal and being real. So that is where it matches. But here, the opposition, I expect nothing much from the opposition.
On this particular issue for them,
on what I've said before, or my analogy, on what might have preceded the opposition's action witnessed in Parliament, I still hold my opinion that it is a well-calculated move, and the opposition may come out just as politicians to rubbish the entire thing by a mere press conference, but that will not alter anything, because these things are made in Parliament. Once the bill has been done for the third reading, it will be taken for the presidential assent. So whether the opposition will hold a press conference to challenge that particular bill, it will still pass, because the onchos have decided it must be passed. But again, that begs the question, are we really elected to defend the people, or are we really elected by the people to put our self-interest first? That is the question for the opposition leaders. They ought to have considered the people. And this is a challenge we have as a country. And as CSO organizations, we are coming up with a plan where leaders are going to be held accountable from their constituencies or by the constituents. If a bill was in Parliament, we will go and educate your constituents that you elected Kennedy Odwenyo in Bumula. When the president brought the bill on finance bill, this is what he did. He never appeared for voting, or he voted for the bill. The people will start holding you accountable as an individual. You know, civic education is a concept that is missing in politics. In 2022, I was heavily involved in political process in the country. And I wondered where, when we traversed some of the parts in this country, you would wonder, are we really Kenyans, all of us, or some of us are coming from a particular region in Kenya? We really need to entrench this aspect of civic education.
Yes.
And this is a failure that's even been done by the IBC. I had an opportunity to sit with the commissioners. I was asking them, they were reporting on young people and their participation in politics. And they were trying to drive a point that we are the technology generation. And our presence is much online. Then I asked them, you have a Twitter handle? Yes. You have a Facebook page? Yes. Can you tell me how many subscribers do you have for you to defend yourself that the majority of us as young people on social media, you don't even have these young people, you don't do this civic education. Where do you expect us as young people to get this information? They say information is powerful than accommodation. Why are you giving us accommodation and not information? That information or hoarding from us is what keeps making the process seems similar over and over. So we really need to do that particular civic education so that the people will get to be informed.
Yes.
You know, an informed individual is a very powerful individual.
Yes.
When you have the information, you can choose what to do with the information. You can use the information to elevate yourself, or even to kill yourself to the worst level. So the choice lies with you. But the moment you are not informed, well informed,
yes,
it's not just being informed, but well informed.
Doesn't.
So that's a challenge we have as a country.
Pretty much. Odonyo, I want you to weigh on this issue as well, just clear on this particular one before we move into other issues this morning that I want you guys to touch on before we step out of the studio. Here's the thing, that indeed we think the opposition is starting to lose power in making declarations on government agenda, that Kalonzo speaks with reason as opposed to speaking with, somebody gave me that phrase yesterday, I've just gotten out of my head this morning, like that with power, yes, that we need to push the government. Is that what we're saying now? That if they do not make that decision right now and say it's Kalonzo, so that we give like whatever statement that come from him, we give them weight, we are starting to lose the power in opposition. And what is next for the opposition in this particular issue for the housing bill?
Correction, it's Odweyo Kennedy.
Yes.
Butula constituency. Bumula is in Bungoma.
Oh, you know the boo-boo. They're almost the
So
same.
basically, what I will say is that
yes,
the opposition has never had any power. The only power that is purported to exist has only existed in one man, Raila Odinga. He's held that mantle because he's the only one who's had and who has the capacity to genuinely mobilize and cause disruptions or chaos or civil disobedience and such things. You see, at the end of the day, on one side, it's a purported win for, we can assume it's a win. Raila's exit could be a win in quotes for Kalonzo. But at the same time, the opposition, like I've said, has been riding on the back of Raila Odinga. The opposition, by that fact, has never had power because at the end of the day, the point has always been once you manage. If you manage Raila, then there's no one else to speak. Kalonzo has always been known to me a very careful man in his utterances because that's a man who always places multi-bets. So he's always very careful in whatever he pronounces because for him, he's never sure where he
That's why they call him watermelon.
So he's never sure where he's a man who tosses a corner.
For audience that doesn't know what a multi-bet is when you bet more than once.
Putting your interest separately in different boxes.
With that kind of mentality, we realize that, and at the end of the day, the framers of the Constitution were trying to pull us from that hall of individualistic power consolidation to institutional power distribution, where power is now vested in institutions as opposed to individuals. Raila has been able to, in this constitution, still be able to vest power in himself. And that's why he's been the power of the concept of opposition and oversight has been left to him.
Yes.
Which has been a very, in my opinion, which has been an undoing to our democracy and parliamentary progress.
Yes.
By vesting power in institutions, the intention was that institutions are supposed to have structures, systems that generate ideas that are 21st century compliant, so that we can solve 21st century problems using 21st century solutions, and that requires 21st century minds. The power of the opposition, what is called the opposition, when it's actually supposed to be the power of the minority, is supposed to be one in their independence in execution of their mandate. That independence comes from the understanding of who put them there. Yes, they may have had their hands raised high, but constitutionally, and that's why I try to invest my sensitization on constitutionalism, because those people, as per the constitution, are put into parliament by the people. That's what, so their power is derived from the people.
The sovereignty.
So when they go to parliament, they are supposed to demonstrate the power of their people by representing their people. But when we find people, like I told you, we have a system where the people who lose elections are the first ones to look for jobs and sometimes get jobs from those who won. So in such a circumstance, you realize that if your objective when going to the ballot was to get a job, even if you lose, you will continue looking for that job. And the moment you get that job, you will be a servant of the person who gave you the job.
Yes.
Which means, even if you had an idea, and your job was a consolation or a merciful opportunity for you to recover a few coins you threw here and there, then it simply means you have no power, which means you just become an appendix. So what is happening, especially with the senior council, whose wisdom sometimes is very questionable, is just some trying to play around with them. I believe it's very disrespectful to speak what you don't believe. Because like we've mentioned here, the first thing should be, they should be summoning those MPs who absconded the parliamentary session on such a critical matter. Because
would he argue, I've got no power, that power is not being ceded to me? Would he argue like that, Odeo? That power is not been ceded.
Power is not ceded, power is taken. You go to the people will give you power.
He can't take it from Raila Amolo Odinga right now.
Raila Amolo Odinga has no constitutional power.
He's not the party leader.
My friend, you're contradicting.
You see, yes. I'm saying he's the coalition.
He's a coalition leader.
How was he elected? Onto that position.
Was the party chair of ODM, which is the majority party
yes,
in that
so
coalition.
if Kalonzo Musyoka wants that power,
yes,
it's for him to convene the same organs, prove to them, to the organs that gave Raila. If he believes Raila was given that power, then it's up to him to convince the same organs to to transfer that power to him. But if he believes Raila
do you think
qualified for that position and earned it himself, then it's up to him to also prove that value so that he can get that position.
Do you believe today that if Kalonzo Musyoka said, hey guys, tomorrow, like, or maybe this Saturday, or maybe on Monday, can I see all the opposition members of parliament in the House? We can talk about House business, how you conducted yourself during the voting process in the House. But do you think they will listen to him?
It depends on what he's offering. It's a trade. It depends on what he's offering.
Simba, that's why I've told you, we have two robbers
Yes.
robbing with two faces. All these things said and done, you know, when we get to how Raila became the de facto opposition leader, we are trying not to be, cognizant of history. This country, for it to get to where it is today, it has been a process, not an event. And these events have been pegged on individual efforts and collective responsibility by the willing citizens. So there is a big difference between what we may want to happen and what is actually happening. It is called realism and idealism. It may be ideal, but it is real that that's not the case. Politics, for it to mutate further, it requires a lot of efforts and individuals coming up for this country to move forward. For me, I support let Raila be given whatever it's given, so so that we have a new crop of opposition or way of holding governments, putting governments to check and balance. That is not the role of an individual, it is the role of the people of Kenya. So the moment everyone wants to look up to Raila to do the checks and balance, we have failed as a nation. That role belongs to me as an individual, it belongs to us here, as we are seated here, not Raila Amolo Odinga. So we should not question much on how it got to that point, not unless we are not cognizant of where we've come from as a nation.
Let's put an end to this conversation like this. And Sankara, I'm going to give you a minute, and Odoy, I'm just going to give you a minute as well. I'm going to read for you this particular comment by the president from yesterday in Naivasha now, when I was speaking to cabinet secretaries, and this is what he said, that I believe that even the opposition side, they're in support of this affordable housing bill. That the only thing that they're doing is that they still want to please their crowds outside there. Is it validating? Did the members of parliament validate him yesterday by vacating that particular duty, that indeed we might be supporting it, so there's no need of going?
It's usually said that bad leaders are not elected by the bad people who make the decision to elect them. Bad leaders are mostly elected by the good people who choose not to make a decision. That statement is validated because at the end of the day, the moment you abscond yourself from a responsibility, then you've supported whatever outcome comes through. So at the end of the day, I believe, we've already talked about the horse trading and all this. You see, if you want to know that the president means what he's saying and is the truth, you realize that there was before there was a declaration of the right honorable to go for the AU position, there were some clips, there are photos that emerged of the president with Olusegun. At some point, they were in the same place. So you realize, because of the horse trading and because of the consolidation of power in individuals, you realize that the moment these two sit down and agree, the rest have to fall in line. So I believe the president knows, and that speaks to the hypocrisy of these people purporting to be the opposition or the opposition. Because at the end of the day, you cannot come to the people in funerals and purport to say you oppose something, when in reality, you will either support it silently or abscond so that you don't look like. So those are some of the traits we need to eliminate from our democracy.
Sankara, you believe there's something that indeed they might be supporting, but
political hypocrisy. Actually, he has just put my words the way I wanted to put them. That
Sankara, I've never seen you support the president.
If you are a good,
this is a very good day. That's why we have so much
heat
in the country.
The president is saying what is real, because that is what I've said here over and over. The president is saying the opposition is supporting that finance bill. The only thing they want is to please their crowds, and that's why I'm saying, that's what I'm saying, to keep their people, their followers busy. They're just keeping us busy. I've given you the vote. Go to parliament, protest by telling us clause by clause when it comes to third reading that this article is unconstitutional. You abscond parliamentary sittings and come to the funeral. We are saying that that finance bill is illegal because it's going to injure the people of Kenya. How? How, when, and why should be an answer coming from a legislature. So, by them choosing to abscond that sitting, they are particularly supporting that bill entirely. I'm saying the president is saying the truth. The president is a politician. I've always said, without any fear of contradiction, that if we have one of the most matured political presidents in this country, then it's one President William Ruto. Of all the presidents we've had in Kenya, William Ruto has been the successive politician. He started as an MP, he rose to a minister, he became a DP for 10 years, and now he's the president. He is much informed. The only problem is that he's surrounded by sycophants, people who do not want to tell the president what he ought to have been told. They want to tell the president what you want to hear. You know, as a leader, at times, there comes a time that you are expecting something. You will not be able or willing to listen to the otherwise. You want to get what you want to be told. So that's what we have. It's good that in a democratic, progressive democratic society, we have people who at times may deviate to tell the president what he ought to have been told and not what the president wants to hear. The president wants to hear that the bill has been passed by Friday and it is now a law. I wish there was some biblical Moses from somewhere, from parliament, to tell the president that we are sorry, Your Excellency. Because of this and that, this may not happen now or any sooner. But here we are in a boat sailing one engine. Once it fails, everything stops. The opposition has said we are going the AU way. The NADCO report is coming. President Ruto is saying, good, this is my opportunity. We have to pass the finance bill. And what next? Yes. The people must suffer. The people will suffer.
Yes.
The people are suffering.
Yes, Sankara, we've got...
But I wish they suffer more so that they will learn a lot.
We've got 4 minutes left. Yes. I want us to jump into the next.
For the longest time, Simba, Kenyans have been going to the ballot, seeing portraits of individuals posted there. They choose to vote otherwise. Then they only see those individuals after they are voting. This time, Kenyans met their match. William Ruto will deal with them until they learn. I think William Ruto will change the political landscape in this country. When you go to vote, you take responsibility individually as a voter. You can't vote for William Ruto and cry for Raila Amolo Odinga. Let Baba go and enjoy whatever he's enjoying. So that we will take responsibility of the people of Kenya.
Good, gentlemen, we have 3 minutes for this particular session. And we can't step out of the show because there are a couple of trending issues that we have to talk about. And Sheila, if you can, then could you please kindly show our audience to what the Daily Nation is talking about this morning. It's about the State House extra budget that has been blocked. And gentlemen, I'll tell you what, they needed 700 million shillings to construct the presidential budget. And Margaret Nyakango essentially told them, I'm not going to approve that. If you want to spend it, just spend it. And they were requesting it on an emergency-based kitty, that it doesn't need to go to get approved, just give it to us because we really need it. Danson Mungatana has been speaking on it, the senator. He's been saying, hey guys, you see now, even previously you couldn't feed a State House. They've sort of worked within their budget. Now we have tents that you can actually go there and any other visitor who wants to go in, and even when the president wants to speak to government officials, now we can fit all of us. So let's upgrade that into presidential. And that is going to cost 700 million shillings. 1 minute, we step out.
I personally believe in what we call the cost-benefit analysis principle. I believe as long as the benefit is justifiable, I'm not privy to the details, the nitty-gritties. So I will say if the benefit is justifiable, I believe as a person the cost should always be, as long as the benefit is commensurate to the cost, I don't have a problem with the expenditures. Because at the end of the day, there's a reason why every expenditure is incurred within government. It's very easy for us to, with our limited knowledge or lack of it, to point fingers and choose to take sides about it. But I am a person who believes that
your control of budget is
we may have picked, the control of a budget has a constitutional responsibility to be convinced of every government expenditure. Sometimes, you know, the problem, the reporting sometimes can be sensational. The control of budget might have written, I'm very sure, the control of budget cannot just say no or I reject. I am very sure when that request was made, the control of budget must have put some notes. This is the reason, this is what we need to do. That is what happens in a simple accounting and all that. So unless we get, I wish they could also give the reasons for that. So I think I'll be able to condemn it or be able to give that when I have that information. As of this moment, I choose not to follow the sensationalism of the media.
That's it. Sankara, 45 seconds, we've got to step out. 700 million shillings is coming on the backdrop of the renovations that are actually currently ongoing at State House as well.
I support the control of budget because I've analyzed the debt trend in the country since President William Ruto took over power. President William Ruto, in less than 15 months, has borrowed over 2.6 billion. Trillion. This money is almost 10% of what the president, the emeritus, borrowed in 10 years when they were together. So it is very right for the controller of budget to, because this is entirely procurement. In procurement, we believe in value for money spent. Any expense must be accountable and it must be justifiable. So you cannot wake up, the controller of budget is trying to look at what is supposed to be financed, with their importance and their urgency. I believe in our own wisdom. She is not a village salad. I may not speak for her, but she must have had good reasons to rejecting this. But based on what we've consumed as the public, especially on the financial dealings within the Kenya Kwanza regime, this is a government of recklessness. You know, they say live within your means. The government is spending much than what it has or what it can afford. That's why you look at our recurrent expenditure. Most of our money goes to that recurrent expenditure. We are paying debts, we are paying people salaries, we even borrow loans to pay people money.
Yes,
so
Sankara.
It is not justifiable.
Yes.
At this point in time, we must always be economical enough to ensure that the little we have, we spend it appropriately. Yeah, we cannot just spend because someone is interested. You know, I may deviate and be political a bit. The number of guests that have visited State House since President William Ruto took over is way larger than the previous presidents, and we know what happens there. These people have been analyzed. I know I'm privy to some of the information I will not see.
Sankara, 15 seconds.
These guys, this money is meant, some of it is meant to ensure that any good guest who comes
allegedly
any good guest who comes leaves a happy man. But that is not the way we want to be as a country. If you're doing the right thing, do it. If you're doing the wrong thing, we will condemn you. So the control of budget must safeguard my money. I don't pay tax for recklessness.
Pretty much. Yes. By the way, that story continues to develop, and we shall be following it, reporting it as we get it at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. So if you've not been watching Parliament, then you should watch today. Because today, we're going to see exactly the deliberations that were placed to the committee. The committee is going to come out and read them on the amendments of that particular housing bill. And if they've got nothing extra after that, according to Ishunwa, Friday, done and dusted. Guess what? Next paycheck, deductions are going to start happening on your salary. Guess what? Has it gone to the Senate? Not yet. Did they listen to the AG? That we will wait and see. So we're waiting for one man to come back. I don't know whether it's going to be Baba while you're away, they passed it, or is it going to be Kalonzo while you're here, they passed it. How is it going to be? For us just to see and watch. Sankara Oduayo, thank you very much for being here with us and Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. The hashtag is The Morning Drift. Let's meet tomorrow. Goodbye.